It happened on an ordinary morning in Central Park. Marcus Reed, a billionaire tech mogul, was on his way to a meeting when something stopped him cold. Across the park, his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, sat on a bench, smiling. It was the first real smile he'd seen since her mother's death. But beside her sat a barefoot young woman in torn jeans and a faded hoodie, reading from a children's book and guiding Lily's finger across each word. Marcus's first reaction was anger. His second was confusion. "Sir, should I call security?" his driver asked. Marcus didn't reply. There was something disarming about the woman's voice, gentle, patient, pure. She looked up, met his eyes without fear, and said softly, "She's smart. She just needs someone to listen." Those simple words pierced the walls around his heart. In that brief moment, a man who had everything met a woman who had nothing, and the collision of their worlds would shake his soul in ways no fortune ever could. If you've ever believed that life has a strange way of bringing the right people together at the wrong time, then this story is for you. Because sometimes, the most powerful lessons don't come from success or money, they come from moments that touch the heart. Before you hear what Marcus did next, before you find out how a homeless woman's kindness would change a billionaire's world, take a second to breathe it in. This isn't just another story. It's a reminder that love and humanity still exist in places we least expect. So if you love true, emotional stories that stir your soul, stories that remind us what really matters, hit that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe for more. Tell us, do you believe kindness can change a person, even one hardened by grief and wealth? Stay with me, because what this billionaire said next left everyone around him completely speechless. Marcus Reed wasn't just any man. At 42, he was one of New York's most powerful billionaires, a real estate mogul who built half the skyline people admired on their morning commutes. He lived in a glass mansion overlooking Central Park, with luxury cars that never saw dust and staff that moved like quiet shadows around him. But for all his success, Marcus was a man haunted by silence. His wife, Natalie, had passed away 3 years earlier, leaving behind their 8-year-old daughter, Lily. Since then, Marcus had lived like a ghost in his own empire. He threw himself into work, into numbers, into control, everything except love and emotion. Then there was Ella Carter, 26, kind-hearted, and homeless. Once a literature student with big dreams, she lost everything when her mother fell ill. The hospital bills drowned her, her landlord locked her out, and soon she found herself sleeping in shelters, clutching the few books she had left. But Ella never lost her gentleness. Every morning, she sat at the corner of Madison Avenue, near a small park, teaching kids from struggling families how to read, for free. She believed education could still change a life, even if hers had fallen apart. What neither of them knew was that their worlds were about to collide in a way that would shock everyone watching. It was a chilly Saturday morning in Central Park, the kind of morning when the air smells of coffee, money, and exhaustion. Marcus Reed sat in the backseat of his black SUV, scrolling through emails, waiting for his driver to pull around. His daughter, Lily, had begged him for something he rarely gave, a walk in the park. Lily was quiet like her father, but curious in ways that reminded him of Natalie. As they strolled through the park, she slipped away from his side, drawn by the sound of laughter near the benches. There, under a street lamp still glowing from the night, sat a young woman, messy brown hair tucked under a faded beanie, a worn coat too big for her, and a smile that could melt the cold off the morning. Ella Carter. She was reading a storybook to 2 small children, her voice soft but full of life. Lily stood there, listening, captivated. When Ella noticed the billionaire's daughter, she smiled warmly. "Would you like to read with us?" she asked. Marcus arrived moments later, his expression unreadable. He took in her appearance, the tattered shoes, the trembling hands, the cardboard box beside her. "Come, Lily," he said sharply, trying to pull his daughter away. But Lily refused. "She's teaching me, Daddy. She's really good." For the first time in years, Marcus's gaze softened, just a flicker. He reached into his pocket, pulled out $100 bill, and held it toward Ella. "I don't need your money," she said gently. "I just like teaching." That moment, That simple sentence stayed with him long after he drove away. After that morning, Marcus couldn't get Ella out of his mind. Her words, "I just like teaching," echoed in him like a melody he hadn't heard in years. It wasn't just what she said, but how she said it. Soft, honest, unashamed. The next weekend, he brought Lily back to the park. Ella was there again, reading Charlotte's Web to a group of kids. Lily ran straight to her, beaming. Marcus stood a few feet away, watching quietly. "Good to see you again," Ella said, smiling up at him. "You didn't run me off after all." "I don't scare that easily," Marcus replied, half smiling. It was the first time in months anyone had seen him smile, even his driver noticed. Week after week, they kept coming back. What started as a simple visit became a quiet ritual. Marcus would bring hot cocoa for Ella and the children. Lily would sit close to her, reading, laughing, learning. One rainy afternoon, Marcus offered Ella a ride home. She hesitated, then accepted. But when the car stopped in front of an old shelter, his chest tightened. She wasn't just kind, she was surviving. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked softly. "Would it have mattered?" she said. "People see where I live before they see me." That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. For years, he'd built walls made of money, routine, and silence, but now a girl who owned nothing was breaking them down. He began visiting her shelter, bringing books, blankets, and eventually helping her start a small reading program for kids. He never flaunted his wealth around her. With Ella, he felt human again. Slowly, laughter returned to his mansion. Lily talked about Ella constantly, how she listened, how she cared. Marcus began inviting Ella over to help with Lily's lessons, and the mansion that once echoed with grief started to feel like home again. Then one evening, after a long day of tutoring, they stood by the window overlooking the city. "You've changed my daughter's life," Marcus said quietly. Ella turned to him, smiling gently. "She changed mine first." For a moment, their eyes locked, and in that silence, something unspoken passed between them. Not wealth. Not pity. Something real. It wasn't a fairy tale kind of love, it was something deeper. A connection born from brokenness, healing, and second chances. Just when everything started to feel right, the world reminded Ella where she stood and how far apart she and Marcus really were. It began one morning when a tabloid photo hit the headlines. Billionaire Marcus Reed seen with unknown woman, mystery tutor or secret lover. The paparazzi had captured a shot of Ella stepping out of Marcus's car outside the shelter. Within hours, the internet was on fire. People called her names: gold digger, scammer, social climber. Others mocked Marcus for bringing home a street girl. Ella tried to stay strong, but every word cut deep. She stopped coming to the mansion, afraid of embarrassing him and Lily. Marcus called, texted, sent his driver, she ignored them all. Days later, he found her back in the park, sitting alone under the same street lamp where they'd first met. "Why are you hiding from me?" he asked softly. "I'm not hiding," she whispered. "I'm protecting you. You don't deserve this kind of gossip." Marcus knelt beside her. "Ella, I don't care what they say." "But I do," she said, tears filling her eyes. "Because people like me don't survive in your world. We get humiliated, we get crushed, and I can't let Lily see that." He reached for her hand. "You're stronger than you think. And I don't care what anyone else believes." But the problem wasn't just public judgment. It was his inner circle. His business partners, even his late wife's parents, began questioning his decisions. "You're losing focus, Marcus," his lawyer warned. "The board doesn't trust your judgment. This woman, she's a distraction." And the final blow came from Lily's private school. The principal politely suggested that Miss Carter's background might not set a suitable example for other students. Marcus was torn. Every part of his heart wanted to protect Ella, but the weight of his reputation, his company, and his late wife's legacy pressed against him. When he didn't defend her publicly, Ella made the choice for both of them. "Marcus," she said one evening, voice trembling, "you've given me more kindness than anyone ever has. But I can't be the reason you lose everything." And with that, she walked away. The mansion fell silent again, emptier than before. Weeks passed. The city moved on, but Marcus didn't. He went to meetings, signed deals, smiled for cameras, but inside, he was hollow. Every night, he'd find himself driving through the same park, hoping to see her again. One night, heavy rain poured down on Manhattan. As Marcus's car rolled past a narrow street, he spotted something that made his chest tighten, a familiar figure sitting under a bus stop, shivering, holding a torn bag of books. It was Ella. He jumped out of the car, rushing toward her. "Ella!" She looked up, startled, her face pale and tired. "Marcus, what are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same," he said, kneeling beside her, rain soaking through his coat. "You disappeared." "I told you," she whispered. "Your world isn't built for someone like me." He shook his head, emotion breaking through his voice. "Then I'll build a new one." She tried to smile, but her hands were trembling. "You can't fix me, Marcus." "I don't want to fix you," he said. "I want to be with you." Before she could respond, Lily's small voice called from the car window, "Daddy, is that Miss Ella?" Ella looked over, her heart breaking. "You shouldn't have brought her." "Lily wanted to see you," he said softly. "She misses you every day." Ella's eyes filled with tears. "She's the only one who made me feel like I belonged." Marcus took her hand, but she pulled away. "You deserve better," she said, standing. "I don't want better," he said, his voice cracking. "I want real." "And that's you, Ella." But before she could answer, a car sped past, splashing water across the sidewalk. The sound of brakes, a sharp scream, and chaos. Marcus turned. Lily had stepped out of the car, running toward them, and slipped on the wet pavement. Everything blurred. Marcus scooped his daughter into his arms, shouting for help. Ella dropped to her knees, pressing her hands against Lily's small head, whispering prayers through tears. Ambulances came. Sirens echoed. Marcus's world was spinning. Hours later, in the hospital waiting room, Ella sat drenched, holding Lily's teddy bear. Marcus came out, exhausted, voice breaking. "She's going to be okay," he said softly. "Because of you. You didn't run this time." Ella looked at him, tears falling. "Maybe I was never meant to leave." And for the first time, Marcus didn't care who saw. He pulled her close, two broken hearts finding warmth in the coldest night of their lives. 2 months later, spring returned to New York City, softer skies, blooming trees, and a sense of new beginnings in the air. Lily had recovered, her laughter echoing through the once silent mansion. But something else had changed, not just in her health, but in her father. Marcus Reed, the billionaire who once lived behind glass walls, had begun tearing them down piece by piece. He sold off one of his luxury cars and turned the funds into a small community learning center near the park, the same one where he first met Ella. Books lined the walls, children filled the seats, and at the front of the room stood Ella Carter, now wearing a modest blouse and jeans instead of a worn coat. She didn't just teach there, she owned the space. Marcus had offered her the position, not as charity, but as partnership. "It's yours," he told her. "You've earned it." At first, Ella was hesitant. "People will talk," she said. "Let them," Marcus replied. "They talked when I lost everything. They can talk now that I found something worth keeping." The scandal had died down. The world moved on. But for Marcus and Ella, something real had begun to grow, not rushed, not perfect, but genuine. They started spending quiet evenings together with Lily, cooking dinner, reading stories, or simply watching the city lights flicker from the balcony. There were no paparazzi, no secrets, just peace. One night, after closing the center, Marcus walked Ella home. They passed the same street lamp where they first met, the same place where everything had begun. He stopped and said softly, "Do you ever think about how one small act of kindness can change everything?" Ella smiled. "Every day." He took her hand, gently. "Then maybe it's time I stop calling you my miracle and start calling you my future." Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered, "Are you sure? You could have anyone." He smiled, that same quiet, rare smile from the park. "I already found the one I didn't know I needed." And for once, there was no fear, no shame, just love. As the city hummed around them, two people from completely different worlds finally met in the middle, proof that even broken beginnings can lead to beautiful endings. Love doesn't always arrive dressed in perfection. Sometimes, it shows up in torn coats and tired eyes. Sometimes, it appears when the world has already written you off. Marcus Reed had built an empire on strength and numbers, but it took a homeless woman's heart to teach him what real wealth looked like. He learned that love isn't about matching worlds, it's about meeting souls. Ella didn't save him with money or beauty, she saved him with kindness. With patience. With a love that asked for nothing and gave everything. And Ella? She learned that even in the coldest corners of life, hope can bloom again. She found a man who didn't see her for what she'd lost, but for what she carried inside: courage, compassion, and light. Their story wasn't perfect. It was messy, human, and painfully real. But that's what made it beautiful. Because love isn't meant to be flawless, it's meant to transform. So maybe the lesson here is simple. When you open your heart, you don't just change someone's life, you change your own. And sometimes, the most shocking response a billionaire can give is love. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to share it. Because stories like Marcus and Ella's remind us that love can grow anywhere, even between a billionaire and a homeless girl, even when the world says it shouldn't. Tell me in the comments, do you believe love can break through social class, pride, and fear? Would you risk everything for someone who changed your heart? If you felt something while watching this, that ache, that warmth, that tiny bit of faith in love, hit the like button, subscribe, and share this story with someone who still believes in second chances. Because sometimes, the people with the least to give end up giving us everything. Stay tuned for more true, emotional, and inspiring stories, stories that make you feel, stories that remind you that even in a cold world, kindness still wins. And remember, love doesn't always come wrapped in perfection. Sometimes, it comes in the most unexpected form and changes your life forever.